Thank you very much. We're going to start because we have a very tight schedule today, and I want to leave enough space for discussion also after the presentation. Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Christophe Milin. I'm project advisor at the EASME. EASME is in charge of the energy efficiency part of the Horizon 2020 Energy Challenge. EASME is also managing the climate action part and also the LIFE program, which support climate adaptation and mitigation actions. If you have any question on the EASME activities, please go on the first floor and look at the stand for EASME, where my colleagues and I will give you all information on what we do. Also be aware that we have at the entrance some information on our activities and notably information on the upcoming calls for proposals open this year. We will start the session today with a presentation from Europace, and I'm very pleased to welcome our two speakers, Eduard Puig MacLean and Kristina Klimovic. I'm very pleased to have them here. Eduard is a co-founder of GNE Finance, a company that aims at bringing a on-tax system PACE financing from the United States to Europe. And he and his colleague will explain in detail what it is and what they are intending to do. Edward was also co-founder of Climate Alliance Partners, founded in Amsterdam, that provide advisory services on strategy and financing to SME. He also has experience in ESCO, and is also providing advices on clean tech startups. Kristina Klimovic is also very knowledgeable on PACE financing. She had worked for 6 years in the US on this specific tool. She was Director of Communication and Market Research for the association PACE Nation, which is an association based in New York to promote and accelerate a PACE financing scheme. Now she works at GNE Finance and on the Europace project. She's leading communication and marketing effort for the Europace project, and I think she is going to start. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Christophe, for this introduction. And so as you said, my name is Kristina, and I'm currently with GNE Finance, and just want to spend a couple seconds here and for a personal reflection. Just a year ago, our team was here in this room making alliances and building partnerships with potential Horizon 2020 partners. And I see that some of our current partners are in the room right now. I see Javier with Aginex over there, and I think some other people as well. So it's been a year, and right now GNE Finance is leading the development of the Europace platform. So who are we? We are an advisory and an investment management platform focused on sustainable assets and climate-aligned assets. And what's our vision? We see that climate change poses risks to both individuals and communities and buildings, given their emission and energy consumption pattern are a big part, can play a really big role in climate change mitigation. And that's where we want to start. We want to start with the built environment. But before I jump into Europace directly, I want to spend a couple minutes to reflect on the built environment. So we do spend roughly 90% of our time indoors. It's about 87% on average for European countries, plus minus a couple percent. But the reality is that indoor environmental factors like lighting, air quality, temperature affect us every day, and they affect us the way we live, the way we work, and also the way we spend our leisure time. Such factors as health, well-being, and productivity are affected by buildings. So it's incredibly important to focus not just on energy efficiency, but also on larger benefits of energy-efficient buildings. So let's look at what motivates a consumer to undertake a home renovation. And by now we know that it's comfort and savings. Those are the two major motivators for home and building renovation. There's a recent study published by the Healthy Homes Barometer led by Villux that suggested just that it's an equal amount of interest in comfort as it is in savings. And it's our goal to make buildings both more comfortable and energy efficient at the same time. And by doing that, we won't only solve climate and energy policy goals, but also at the same time we'll be able to ensure that all Europeans benefit from energy transition by focusing on concerns like energy and fuel poverty and asthma and various other allergies. And by doing that, we'll be able to improve not only sleep quality, but also concentrations. So let's take a look at what does it mean to undertake a renovation. Well, the reality is that renovation is a complex, multi-stakeholder process. It can be stressful and difficult. Let's play this through. The first step is to analyzing what needs to be improved and finding that improvement, and it requires certain expertise to actually determine what is the necessary improvement. The second step would be finding the contractor. And recently, I looked up the veracity survey of who do people actually trust. And the trust in contractors is incredibly low. It's just above politicians, which is the lowest one. So just to give you a sense that people don't trust their energy services contractor. So it poses quite a risk to them to actually find the right contractor, then receive that quote and assess whether it's valid and whether they want to move forward. Let's say you did. You found a contractor. Then the next step is funding. Well, in majority of European countries, folks will actually fund it out of pocket, meaning from their savings. But some may not have an opportunity to do that. So they would look for bank financing. Well, a typical bank loan usually extends from 5 to 7 years, and it's never 100% funding. Plus, it takes time and resources to actually get there, get to that loan financing. And you probably have to, by now, as we're moving through that process of renovation, you probably have taken a couple days off, had several meetings, maybe contractors were not on time. So the reality is that it's a difficult process. There are many parties involved, and it needs to be simpler since we have real problems to solve by making buildings more energy efficient. And this is one of our goals as Europace project and GNE Finance, to make buildings more comfortable and energy efficient, but also making the process of renovation easier, faster, and simpler for all Europeans. And with that vision in mind, we designed Europace. And Europace is a platform for home and building renovation. It's based on already a very successful model called PACE. So PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. And the PACE market is actually global. We're just one part of the market. PACE originally started in the US, and it spread quickly to Australia, Canada, and their recent efforts under development in South Africa and even China. And it's time for Europe. So let's look a bit back and see how PACE developed. What is the story of PACE? Well, PACE started in 2007 in Berkeley, California. However, the concept itself is not new at all. It's based on a very old, long-standing concept, which was originally pioneered by Benjamin Franklin in 1736, when he created the first fire district. And in order to finance that fire district, he added charges to property owners who benefited from that fire district, essentially creating that collection and security mechanism. And so PACE relies on that. In a sense, local governments now can finance energy efficiency, renewable energy, and water conservation improvements, and they meet what's called a valid public purpose, which that is the actual innovation, that energy efficiency is now part of that valid public purpose, along with parks and water filtration plants and sewage plants and lighting districts. So that idea quickly spread across the US. And currently, there's PACE laws in 33 states and District of Columbia. And each of these laws amends an existing tax structure in that state. Plus, there are a number of programs in implementation. To date, there's over 50 programs. Some of them are commercial, some of them are residential, and some of them are mixed. And programs vary quite a bit in size and scope. Some programs cover a whole state, while others are just city leadership initiatives. And programs are poised to only expand. Right now, on the residential side alone, some of the programs in California are securitizing $250 million of PACE projects every quarter. And they're only poised to grow, because right now these programs are only covering a part of the state. So let's look at why is PACE so successful? What are some of the benefits of PACE? Well, the first one and obvious one is that it's 100% financing, and it covers both hard and soft costs of a project. The second benefit is that PACE extends to up to 20 years, and some programs also offer flexible repayment terms, such as 5, 10, and 15 years, that match directly with the useful life of a project. And such long-term financing allows these measures to be cash flow positive almost from day one. And in that sense, annual energy savings actually are larger than annual payments. And last but not least, PACE stays with the property upon sale, as it carries over with a typical tax bill. When you move or you sell your building, it simply stays, and the new tenant assumes ownership of it and continues repayment. So what can PACE finance? And the answer is pretty simple. It's any technology that can save or produce energy. And then it's defined in a bit more detail by each state, since each state has its own legislation and some of them are a bit more prescriptive while others keep it pretty broad. But the general sense is that it's all the measures that are permanently affixed to a building that save or produce energy. And almost any type of building in the US currently can use PACE, from schools to single-family homes to multi-family homes, hotels, even some of the nonprofits use PACE as well. So let's look at what is different from a typical energy efficiency loan program compared to PACE. On the left-hand side, you see a very generalized process of a typical energy efficiency loan program, from a project inception to application to financing. And then there is some form of repayment. So the fundamental difference is on the right, that PACE is actually attached to a property and it is repaid with other property taxes and charges over a period of 20 years. And that offers benefits to both homeowner and the investor who provides funding. For the investor, they have a very secure and stable repayment mechanism, because PACE is also a lien on the property supported by the municipality. And for a homeowner, they get this long-term financing for 20 years. And I have an actual example of a property tax bill. It's in green. You see that PACE is actually repaid on a typical property tax bill that a homeowner, in this case in Riverside, California, receives their property tax, and they're expected to make a contribution. And here it's very well aligned with their expectations and with the timing in the year when they're actually making a large payment towards their property. So PACE fits well with consumer expectations as well. And local governments then collect these payments along with other property taxes, keep them in a separate fund, and then remit those payments to investors. So who are the parties to a typical PACE transaction? And at least there are 4. First of all, it's the homeowner, and homeowner enjoys fast approvals and easy and digital application. In fact, the recent survey conducted by one of the PACE providers in the US suggested that that was one of the main reasons why consumers used PACE, because it was digital, it was simple, and it was fast. And that, I think, tells volumes to us, that it's not because they wanted to be more energy efficient. It's not because of many other reasons that are often brought up. It's really because of the simplicity and ease of use. And then, of course, PACE is 100% funding, which they could not find elsewhere. Local service contractors are joining programs and getting certified by PACE programs right now. Each program has a fleet of over 200 contractors operating in each city. And contractors receive a number of benefits, such as training, And PACE is essentially a new tool in their toolbox that helps them sell projects. And when I speak to contractors, usually what they say is that, well, we do have a lot of projects in our back pockets, but we could never finance them. And so now with PACE, we can actually go back and look through our backlog and go through all these projects and fund them, because the original issue was lack of funding. And of course, PACE also helps contractors close larger projects and even work on multi-improvement projects to really achieve that deep retrofit. And so for local governments, PACE helps them meet their climate and energy goals and create jobs and local economic activity. Some states in the US, of course, highlight the climate aspect, while others really rely on jobs, like Texas, for instance. So, and for the PACE investor side, as I mentioned earlier, the main draw is that PACE is an easily securitizable, aggregatable asset, and PACE provides secure returns for 20 years. So this is just a snapshot of the impact of the PACE industry. Currently, in the US alone, there's been nearly $5 billion invested in PACE financing, and that brought over 40,000 new jobs, and over 200,000 homeowners used PACE, and now they have more comfortable and energy-efficient homes. There are a number of case studies and video testimonials that you can see from our website, which is Europace2020.eu. So why are we here today? We're here to talk about how to adapt this mechanism, PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy, to Europace, to make it a European tool that aligns with European goals and needs. And so when I look at both the US and Europe as a whole, I see a lot of differences, but there are also quite a few similarities. And today I'll talk only about kind of two large aspects. One is the policy aspect and the political support, and the other is consumer dimension. And I see a lot of similarities. For instance, there are 50 states in the US, and there are 28, soon to be 27 states in the EU. And the reality is that every one of these states has its own property tax structure and its own property tax laws. Well, it's not that different from the US. Every state still has to amend its legislation. Every state has different frequencies of payments and different bodies that collect these payments as well. What we also have in common is that there is very strong city and state leadership in the US, while in the EU, there is a strong EU-wide and national ambition to retrofit buildings. And we both agree that building renovation is absolutely key in climate change mitigation. And also building and energy efficiency investment is largely untapped. There is such a great opportunity out there. We heard in the opening session some numbers were brought up, and also again and again we hear that this is an untapped resource, and we should definitely work together to increase energy efficiency in buildings. And last but not least, on the consumer dimension, what we know is that people don't wake up in the morning to buy energy efficiency. They also don't wake up in the morning to buy financing. People are motivated by much more emotionally charged benefits. Sometimes it's comfort, sometimes it's health, sometimes there is a new baby in the house and someone is looking to make sure that air quality is up to the proper standards. So it's really these other motivational factors that energy efficiency community should align with in order to increase the demand. So now I spoke about the overarching vision and how PACE works, and touched upon Europe a bit, and I'd like to hand it over to Eduard to speak about Europace in more detail.
So, as Christina just described, we believe that Europe is actually a more suitable framework for this kind of initiative. Not only from the legal or policy-making point of view, in which both at EU level and national level, we've seen initiatives from the legal standpoint to precisely put in place policies that enable us to tackle climate change. And as Christina was describing, also homeowners, citizens claiming more sustainable products and services. So when we look at what's going on across Europe in terms of energy efficiency programs, we're not surprised to see that there are a number of energy efficiency programs out there trying to grasp this opportunity. Some of them, actually many of them, pretty successful. But when we went and asked them, okay, so how's it going? Are you guys being successful? They said, we are getting the proof of concept, but we are having problems to scale it up. They are struggling to scale up their projects or their solutions. So, and the fundamental reason being, as we heard in the opening session this morning, is that they are struggling to attract affordable capital. So most of these projects, most of these initiatives are funded by either subsidies or specific investment funds, but who require a pretty high, pretty expensive capital. So we went to the investors and asked them, okay, to the big investors, okay, so why do you guys don't offer more affordable lending to these projects in order for them to scale? And their answers were pretty clear. And they said, well, we are big investors, so we're looking for one, big projects, and nowadays what we're seeing as small projects. Second is, even if you manage to finance a big number of small projects, you need to make them in a certain way that it can be aggregated, as it was also mentioned this morning in the opening session. But third, and most importantly, is that even if those projects can reach a certain scale, or you can aggregate them to have them in a certain sizable pool, you need them to be secured. What that means? It means that, for instance, if I go and sign a loan for a car, if I don't pay my monthly installments, that car will be taken away as a guarantee, will be liquidated, and with that money, the loan will be paid. The same thing for a mortgage. If I get a loan, a mortgage, and I don't pay my monthly installment, that asset is going to be liquidated, meaning the asset, the house or the car, act as a guarantee. In the case of energy efficiency projects, we don't have that security. So basically, this is the challenge that from Europace we are trying to tackle. Now the question is, how did the folks in the US manage to solve this problem of lack of scalability, aggregation, and securitization? So we went and talked to them, and we learned interesting things. Is that they told us, well, financing is not the only issue here. It's not about securitization or standardization. It's also about the homeowner. Money represents the offer. The homeowner represents the demand. These are two sides of the same coin. And as much as these are two complete different animals, we have to deal with them together. So PACE financing innovates on both sides, for the investors and for the homeowners. So for the investors, basically what it does is, by using this tax collection mechanism, as Christina described, what we can provide is seniority to that debt, meaning it's highly more secure in terms of being repaid. Second of all, as Christina described, this financing is attached to the property, meaning that property provides the security as a car or as a house in a mortgage. But also, by following certain standards, certain protocols, these many projects can be pooled and then later on securitized and issue green bonds. Okay? And that's how we attract affordable big investors. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have the homeowners. And the homeowners, as we heard before, don't buy energy efficiency. So how do we create this demand? How do we stimulate the homeowners to engage in these stressful, not agreeable retrofit projects? Well, we need to make it simple, even digital. So we have to provide them technical assistance, help them to tackle what kind of measures, what contractor, and how to finance it. Can we do this in an integrated way? So they only have one people to talk to, and they can do this fast, convenient, and eventually digitalized? Well, these guys from the US did it, and they, as Christina showed, pretty successfully. But even though I can tackle all these questions, how about if I need to invest in an insulation or windows or any other measure that will take 10, 12, 15 years to pay back? That's going to affect on my cash flow. Well, this kind of financing can allow you to go up to 20 years. Okay, but what if in 3 years I sell my house? What do I do with that investment? Well, you can transfer that investment to the next owner of the house. So these were the two main stakeholders in this equation, but they are not the only ones in this ecosystem, because governments and energy professionals, energy efficiency professionals, also play a very important role. The government sets the rules for this kind of projects or this kind of programs to be possible in the municipalities, but also, fundamentally, it makes available the tax collection system to precisely bring all that aspect of safetiness and security to the financing. And then, of course, what we learned from the US as well is that the contractors, the energy service providers, become the sales force, because now they have a very powerful tool to sell their services, but also they can tackle bigger projects. So through this, they can grow and dynamize their services. Okay, so what we just explained you so far is the experience, successful experience in the US, our vision to bring it to Europe. Now it's time to walk the talk. So that's why we have a 3-year plan to make this happen in Europe. And basically, there are 3 main phases. The first of all is we will try to understand how the different member states across Europe are suitable or are ready for this kind of on-tax financing. It depends, of course, on the legal fiscal legislation, so we'll take a look at it and find out what countries or states are closer to be ready for a PACE funding. Soon after, we'll start a pilot project in the city of Olot, which is in Catalonia region, northeast of Spain, and there we'll test it out and see and learn how we can implement this in a European member state. After we do this, what we'll do is, out of those countries that from the first phase we have identified as suitable for PACE financing, we'll try to find leader cities that are willing to replicate on-tax financing in their jurisdiction. And I'm saying replicate because the fundings that we have, the scope of this project is to precise help for European cities to replicate this program and be ready to launch it. 8 members of the consortium. What I would like you to pay attention to this slide is what they represent. The 4 members on top, from CASE to climate bonds, they represent the offer, the investor / the money side. From fiscal legal experts through investment managers down to climate bonds initiative, which is the expert in issuing green bonds. The 4 on the bottom represent the demand, the citizens, from the municipality of Olot through 2 energy agencies, very knowledgeable in terms of projects, but also to an NGO specialized in social innovation. We want to try to test, can we tackle energy poverty? Can we tackle or can we convert those millions of jobs that were lost in construction? Can we convert them into energy efficiency professionals? We're doing this already in Spain. We started a few months ago, and we already talked to the authorities there, ministries, local organizations, regional governments. And what we would like to share with you is a very interesting feedback and finding, which is that they told us, we love this tool. We see the potential of this instrument. Now, why only use it for energy efficiency when in buildings there are so many other challenges, such as accessibility, safety, and so on? So suddenly, what's happening is that we are developing PACE financing in Spain to start with, but not only for energy efficiency, but for other building retrofit measures. So we would like to take this opportunity to thank you for being here, but also to ask you to be candidates as leader cities. We would love you to join our community and eventually in 1 year or 2, start to replicate on-tax financing in your jurisdiction. So please go to our website, sign in, we'll keep you posted, and we'd like to see you in the next events. And with this, we'll be more than happy to address any questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eduard. Thank you, Christina. It was very, very interesting. It could, I wish it had continued for a longer time. I'm sure there are many, many questions already. I see already one. So maybe we take a round of 3 questions, if you're okay with that. Okay. So maybe we start there. Do we have a microphone or no?
Thank you. Mihai Tudorancea is my name. I'm coming from Romania. Just a small question. You are usually tackling the maturity of the tax up to 20 years with the specific energy efficiency measures that are implementing, meaning if for a house I need some specific retrofit measures that are usually amortized during 10 years, you were gonna tackle that one with the specific maturity, or you usually have just for a simplicity in the tax collection for the city to implement just one specific tax, like everything, whatever it is happening with the measures, is gonna be on 20 years. Because it has to be also simple with the taxation from the city size, not to be complicated, I assume.
That is a very good question. So basically, the 20 years is to say that can be up to 20 years, long-term financing. Then what we see, the experience in the US is that normally they break it down to 5, 10, 15, 20. And then is an option from the homeowner to choose what maturity to sign for.
And I'll just say a couple more words on that. And as well as measures are usually, the financing usually extends up to the useful life of the improvement. Mm-hmm. So that's really important that, long-term measures like windows and insulation, right, they're much longer-term repayment than lighting, for instance. So it's a very good question. Also, you pointed out about the simplicity for municipality, and that's why there are PACE programs. That's really key, that the PACE program provides that administrative support to make sure that municipality does not have to do extra work, that there is the partner, sometimes a nonprofit, sometimes a private sector partner that's there to make that process smooth.
Thank you. France, the Republic of France, has 40% of the habitat that is heated by electricity. Electricity in France is 85% nuclear. This heating by electricity is a crime, is an engineering crime, because the efficiency is practically zero. Now, this new government has decided to change and refurbish housing. The refurbished housing costs several billions. I would like to know if GNE is ready to help the French government in financing this refurbishment. By the way, the refurbishment is very complicated because electricity is a small wire in the wall, heated by boilers, needs piping, needs pumps, valves, and the costing is astronomical. Therefore, it's very interesting that GNE takes a position and explain how they could help the French government to clean up this terrible issue. Thank you.
Do you want to say something?
I just wanted to ask you where you were from France maybe, or where are you from? Your name?
Sorry?
What is your name?
Maltini. I live in France and
Okay.
I work in energy efficiency,
Okay.
and I'm trying to convert houses which are heated by electricity into heating by thermal system.
Okay.
And it's very difficult.
Okay. It's not an easy question to answer because the whole principle of this financing instrument is that the on-tax financing, meaning that the financing is recovered, is repaid through the property tax. And also it has to be run locally by the local municipality. And precisely in the case of France, who happens to be a very centralized government, property taxes are collected from Paris. So it's difficult to be able to implement these localized programs per municipality when taxes are collected from the central government. Meaning that when we were saying at the beginning that we are thinking, we want to draw this map of Europe to understand how countries are suitable, how close or far they are from this kind of scheme, well, France is not the best position at the moment. We are talking to people in France, to stakeholders trying to deal with this problem, and we're trying to find out hybrid solutions. But that would require a top-down approach, meaning discussing with the central government how we could implement this localized solution across the country.
I think we have another question on the back. Can you please introduce yourself before you ask the questions?
Yes, thank you. Alexandra Todoroiu from Kaujan Europe. We actually coordinate a PACE project too, so it's like discovering a distant cousin. But our project focuses on fuel cell micro CHP, so bringing fuel cells closer to mass market, and scalability is really an issue for us as well as finance. So my question is, how do you bring in solution providers? Because you are addressing financing, you're addressing the demand side, but energy efficiency solution providers, is there any, do you engage with them and bring them together?
Thank you. That's a great question. And yes, I know about your project. Recently, somebody forwarded a newsletter with PACE on it, so it's really great to meet you in person. So contractors are absolutely key to PACE and Europace financing, because contractors are essentially the sales force for the program. And they're the very first people who come into the room and start the conversation about financing. So the first step to get the group of contractors is to engage with local and regional and national bodies of different types of contractors and begin working on training programs for contractors that will eventually lead to some sort of certification. I don't want to say necessarily certification, but verification of contractors that will be attached to a specific program. So for us, it's absolutely key to have a program that not only provides financing, but also digital tools to homeowners to engage, but also provides an army of contractors who are there, who are already selling energy efficiency, and now they'll be able to sell energy efficiency with financing.
I think we have time for one more question. There was one in the back. I'm sorry, she asked first.
Can I? Thank you. My name is Jana Cicmanova from Energy Cities. And my question was about financing. You said that the PACE scheme ensures 100% upfront financing. So who is bringing this money to the project, the private investors? And then, if you can clarify that maybe. And then, if the homeowners do not pay their taxes, I don't know, it could happen, who is bearing the risk? Is it the municipality, or is it the private investor, or who is that? Thank you.
Okay. So the kind of investors that really like this sort of product, long-term financing, are of course insurance funds or governmental funds who are looking for this kind of long maturity investments. That's to address your question number one. However, we've seen also this in the US, that on the first stages of this development, before you reach certain scale to attract this kind of big money, affordable but big money, you need to fill this gap. And normally you go for specific targeted investment funds, such as Suzy Partners or many other, well, not that many, who are specialized in this kind of financing, but at a higher cost. To your and the second point is, in case of payment default, the one who's bearing the guarantee is never the municipality. That's a very important point. And when we talk to municipalities, they always tell us two things. One is we cannot be the guarantee for this financing is the PACE provider. It's part of its business. And second of all, even if they collect the financing through the tax collection system, that money doesn't consolidate with the municipal budget, because that's another issue. Okay, so in case of payment default, it's the PACE provider who bears the risk.
Thank you very much. I'm sure there are many other questions, but I'm sorry we have to close on time. because the next session will start in 15 minutes. You will have other opportunities to hear about the Europace project. As has been said, you can subscribe and get information from the project. The project will also be presenting during a webinar next week on the 27th of February. And you have the information on the table, and also at the entrance of the room alongside the information on our next call for proposals. I thank you very, very much. I hope we have many other opportunities to discuss this very interesting and comprehensive project and approach. Thank you very much.